Tony Stark built it in a cave with a box of scraps. Welcome to Primary Technology, the show about the biggest news in tech and why it matters. Lots of news this week. We're going to talk about Apple's new sports app that was just launched this week, iOS 17.4. Lots of changes both in the EU and here. Alexa released a smart home hub, Your Move, Apple. OpenAI showed off its video generator, Sora, and we might just touch on Apple Vision Pro. We're not going to sit on it, and then a whole bunch of news at the end as well. This episode is brought to you by all of you who support the show directly. We want to thank you for that. I'm one of your hosts, Steven, and joining me, as always, is my friend Jason Aten. How's it going, Jason?
It's good, and I think that was good advice. You should not sit on your Apple Vision Pro. No matter what, that would be the wrong thing to do with it, right? So,
Don't sit. Not made for sitting.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I have a quick question for you before you dive into everything else, because every time we start the show, you just say things.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if people listen, which is what you normally would do on a podcast, but sometimes they feel like today you talked about Tony Stark in a cave, and I'm wondering, did we ever explain to people why, or is this a version of like just a thing that Steven does when he starts talking?
No,
do you
no.
do that in normal conversations with random people at the grocery store? She's like, would you like plastic? And you're just like, Tony Stark built it in a cave. I'm just wondering.
I think I'm going to start doing that, actually. I forget. It was on one of the first episodes. It might just be for our bonus episodes, which you get bonus episodes every week if you support the show, which you can do directly on Apple Podcast or at primarytech.fm. But we talked about, like, opening a show. It always feels awkward, and I don't know where the idea came from. I don't know if it was me or you. Probably me, because it's weird. But I said I'm gonna just say a random movie line at the top of the show. But I've now morphed that into, I try to say a movie line that is tangentially connected to something we're going to talk about in today's episode. So that's what I'm doing.
So you're putting in the work. That's good. I appreciate that.
It's not a lot of work, I'll be honest, but I have I'm putting in a little work.
Okay.
I do have a couple articles of like top 100 movie quotes, and I have I do it's a little work. I also have a movie podcast, which again helps. Connected, but. Anyway, that helped. Anyway, we got a ton of news to talk about today, and we have to thank so many 5-star reviewers. Last episode, we asked everyone. We wanted to get to 100 5-star reviews. I think we made it. Apple Podcast is like a little delayed in registering reviews, so the latest one says like Monday, and we're at 96. But I'm going to say, in faith, I think we hit 100. And you could tell by all the people who followed our instructions, which is to leave a review of one word that just said nerds.
Yes.
we have a bunch of reviews that just say nerds, and I just want to say thank you all. That's amazing. Please keep them coming.
Yes.
And we'd like to give you a shout out here on the show. So I'm going to rapid fire these, and then we're going to address our 1-star review. I think we have 2 1-star reviews.
Yeah.
I think one is you, and then this other guy left us a 1-star review. Well, because you thought you had to press each star to fill it in, and right after you press the 1 star.
I don't think I did that, but apparently they are both my fault anyway, so that's fine. I'm okay with that.
The other guy is responsible both for 1-star and 5-star reviews.
Yeah.
So here's the full list. I'm going to go real quick. D's 1111s, David R. My username is Adam, Mark G, NYC2, Adviso07. I don't even know how to pronounce this. Xbiats Peru. I don't think it's an actual word. Someone just, I think, hit their keyboard for like HDKSJD, like that you just random thing.
My cat left that one.
Yeah. Varkius, Realist Photo, Jeff's MacBook Pro. I feel like, I don't know if it autofilled his computer. That's interesting. Jordan I, Ailin 2020, The Fifth Diamond, Kristen Otto, J-Rod 1992, Club Los. His review was one word. It said Twizzlers. I don't know if that was in response to, we talked about candy the other week.
We did sort of say you could leave your favorite Halloween candy, although Twizzlers is questionable as a Halloween candy, just to be honest.
I don't think Twizzlers is a... Well, anyway, if you're leaving a review this week, you can put your favorite Halloween candy and why candy corn is the worst. You can say that in the review. Okay. That's fine. And Todd Page is a good friend. I know he's reviewed other podcasts I've done. He left a 5-star review. And he has a question, which actually has a shortcuts solution. And so I think maybe we should do that at the follow-up at the end.
Sure.
If you remember, if I remember, I'll try to remember.
Okay. I'm making a note right now on my notepad.
Oh, your notepad. Yeah, we're going to talk about...
There's a good teaser for you, though.
That's good. Jay, we're going to talk about Jason's use of a notepad later. Yeah. And we do have one 1-star review. No shout-out. I'm not saying the name, but definitely blamed it on the other guy.
That's true.
He said the other guy. And he went on to talk about some politics stuff, which I don't know if you realize this is not a politics podcast. We don't talk about that. But,
it's not. And I think it's important for people to understand that just because we have things to say, they should not be taken in any way as a signal of any political affiliation. Chances are that if you're listening to this and you think you can determine our politics, you're probably wrong. And I don't mean that that's that you're not an intelligent human. It's just that's not the point of the show. And if you have read any of my articles, you know that I'm just an equal opportunity pointer outer of knuckleheadery. That's like my title, actually. And so
that's pretty good.
I just call it like I see it. And sometimes that means that the people that you think are on your team are going to get called out. Sometimes the people on the other team, but I'm not on either of those teams. So I just want to, you're more than welcome to leave any review you want. I just want to assure you that if you're listening and I say something about someone or a company, it should not be taken as any kind of a signal. That's it.
And what you should do is go to Apple Podcasts, even if many of you, I know you probably listen in Overcast or Pocket Cast because we have a very tech-savvy audience.
Yeah.
But just open the Apple Podcast app. I know it'll be the first time in years, but just go over, open that app. It's actually pretty good now. The design is good. You should check it out. But anyway, leave Primary Technology a 5-star review, and you can just say nerds, favorite Halloween candy, whatever you'd like. And just to show that Jason is unbiased, he puts bumper stickers for every presidential candidate on his car for the last 20 years. You can barely see the car. It's pretty amazing.
It's amazing. I'm driving the worst-looking Tesla in America.
You're not just kidding. He doesn't do that. All right, we have lots of news. Apple released a random app on a random Wednesday in the middle of February, and it's the Apple Sports app. I'm resisting making a sports ball joke. I'm not going to do it. I'm trying to respect the craft, respect the art. But it is the Apple Sports app, and it is free to download. You can get it right now. Interestingly, this wasn't tied to like an iOS 17.4 release, which usually we see Apple's like stock apps usually tied to an update or something. But this is a very, I think, simple sports app, you could say. One of the big omissions right now supposedly was the NFL, but that is coming. And the MLB, it's weird. I think the marketing team and the developer team on this app might not have been communicating super tightly because in the press release, still in the Apple Newsroom article, it said MLB will be coming soon, but actually the MLB is in the app right now. You can do that. And, I'm going to have to lean on you, Jason, because if anyone has listened to stuff that I've done in the past, I'm not super into sports. Okay.
Well, let me start first. It isn't entirely coincidental. I mean, it did drop basically the same day as MLS started, which Apple basically owns MLS, right? I mean, to watch MLS, it's on Apple TV Plus. So there is like some logic to the timing if you want to think about it that way. Yeah, MLB is technically in there, but you do know they're also not playing right now, right? They don't start spring training for a couple months, and then the season doesn't start until a little bit later in the year. Obviously, the NFL. Remember the whole big game Super Bowl thing? They're done for a while. We don't get to see any more Taylor Swift at NFL stadiums unless you go to a concert.
Which I just have to say, I was texting my friend Nate, and I texted in the app because he's into sports as well, and I said NFL, should be coming when the season starts, months from now, and he was like, whoa, NFL is all year round. He said the draft starts in April. And so, it's always NFL season. And I said, listen, that's a deeper cut than I realized. But also, I just want to mention the movie quote at the beginning was because one of the funniest memes from the big game was Travis Kelce yelling at his coach. And someone put the words on that picture, Tony Stark built us in a cave with a box of scraps. And I thought that was a very good meme. That's how it's tangentially connected.
That's true.
But anyway, please continue.
Well, no, that's okay. There are not normally scores from the NFL draft, but Nate is right that it is coming. I was actually in Vegas a couple years ago, like a couple days before the draft, as they were setting up, and it was just bonkers. I mean, Vegas is bonkers. NFL draft is bonkers. You put the two things together. Can't even imagine what the Super Bowl would have been. Yeah, I can't even imagine. But I have a quiz for you. I have a question. This is sports related here. Because if you listen to Steven knows a lot about technology and almost nothing about sports. And so I have a couple questions. We'll make this quick because I don't want to dwell too much on Steven's inadequacies because that would be not very nice as a friend. But my question is, how many, without looking this up, he didn't know about this ahead of time, how many Division I college football conferences can you name?
Okay, now hold on a second. This is... Wait a minute. Isn't this
he
like
doesn't even understand the question?
I don't understand the question. Is this like the Big Ten and the top 8, or is this
Big
like the
Ten
Southeast?
Is one of them. I'm just asking you to name as many as you can that are college football conferences, and the Big Ten is one. So there you go.
The Big Ten is one.
Yep.
You got the top four. No, you got literally that was a guess. I didn't know if it was like the Southeast, like the because don't like Bama Roll Tide or whatever. That's a thing.
Yeah. Yep.
Aren't they in a conference?
What conference are they? They're all in a conference. Which one are they in?
Are they the SEC? Something?
Yep. There you go. You got two.
Oh,
That's
I got
good.
two. I got two. Is the West something? Is there one with the word West in it?
There's a couple. Yep. There's
okay. The wet. That's all I got. That's
okay.
Literally all I got.
That's
no
two.
idea.
That's actually, to be honest, better than I expected. So I'm proud of you. So there, yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, we could have accepted Big 10, Big 12, the ACC, the Mountain West maybe was what you were going for, the American Conference, the Pac-12, the SEC, the Sun Belt Conference. There's a bunch of them. So I just was curious. I just wanted people to know that when Steven is talking about this app, he is purely doing this for our audience because he could not care less about the sports app. Just so that you know.
Well. To be clear, so a couple of interesting things I will say about the sports app from a tech standpoint. Well, Number one, I opened the app for the first time and was immediately dumbfounded because I wasn't sure what to do. I wanted to just see the app, and it won't let you get past the splash screen without choosing teams, favoriting teams or leagues. And I was like, is this something everybody has to do? And just, again, to show you how little I follow sports, apparently, if you had chosen favorite teams or leagues, either in the news app or in Apple TV app, I believe, it would have pulled those favorites when you first opened the sports app. And apparently I had never, ever done that. And so this was the first time I ever had to choose teams, which even that was I don't even know what to choose. Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm near Tampa, so I chose the Rays. And because I'm from New York, I chose the Yankees, and that'll probably make everyone mad. I don't even know what that means. So I did that, opened it up. I think, John Gruber, he had a great article on Daring Fireball talking about the app. He's a big sports guy and also knows a little bit about sports betting, which I found to be one of the more interesting aspects of this app is not only can you see live scores, standings, live activities are apparently coming. They're not, I think, available right this second, but they should be once season start for these sports or whatever. You can click one button to watch on Apple TV, or the app will tell you where you can stream certain games, but there's going to be betting odds right there for each game. I don't even know how to read betting odds. There's something called money line and then the spread, which I think is the point spread. Again, this is how little I know, but just the fact that Apple is putting betting information here, I believe it's powered. Do you remember what it's powered by? Is it DraftKings?
Yeah, I think it is DraftKings. I don't know that for 100% sure, but I do believe it is.
I think it's powered by DraftKings because Gruber said he actually finds more accurate betting stats from FanDuel and the MGM something. So anyway, I find it interesting. My question to you is going to be, one day, do we think that Apple is going to allow people to do sports betting in their app? And I'm not talking this year, next year. I'm saying years down the road as iPhone sales flatline and just constant, consistent upgrades, but no growth. iPads, they're not spent all 2023, not even making a new iPad. Services revenue, if that ever needs a little spike for investors, will they open betting? And if they did, I mean, how crazy would it be for the billions, maybe not billions, no, the millions of users and the billions of devices that have an Apple ID with a credit card attached, if they could somehow place bets with what they have already set up, so it's literally as easy as tapping 2 buttons. I don't know. Do you think that would ever be a thing?
This feels like the perfect illustration of the cartoons when we were a kid and they'd have the character and you'd have the angel on one side and the devil on the other side. And in this case, those two things are enormous, yelling into Tim Cook's ears, because on the one hand, there is no way that Apple wants anything to do. They don't even allow betting apps on the iPhone at this point. So they don't even, there's no way they want anything to do with betting, except over here is this devil going but money, 30% of every spread. Oh, come. Yeah. So I don't know which of those two is going to win out. Although historically it seems like most of the time it's been the money, right? And so I don't know, like, and would that mean that Apple would then have to allow that type of app on the iPhone, right? That feels like it's the floodgate that would open, because there's no way that Apple could have its own but not allow MGM or not allow FanDuel or DraftKings or any of those things. And so that just feels a really interesting thing. But if I had to place a bet, no pun intended, I would say that it seems totally out of character of Apple from everything I would expect, except for that, yes, they're going to probably do that. Like, it seems like obvious.
Interesting. Now, again, I don't know the legalities, U.S. or worldwide, but with the changes in 17.4 in the EU, having to open up to third-party app stores and, different, not the same rules basically as the U.S., does that mean it's possible then for betting apps to be on the iPhone in the EU? Through third-party app marketplaces?
Well, I don't know anything about the legality of betting in Europe, but what I will say is that I don't think Apple could prevent them from being on, because I think that the rule, if I remember correctly from all of the DMA stuff, that Apple can't reject apps based on content at this point, and so it's in the third-party marketplaces. They can still set their own rules for their own app store, but for third-party, so that's like really where people think. The third-party app stores are going to be those types of apps that just can't exist currently on the iPhone, and betting seems like it's the big one. So,
interesting. Well, super interesting. So, Apple released this app. I think it is interesting that Apple has started releasing really simple apps, iPhone only. Also, big part. Like, this seems like a prime app to be on iPad. Maybe even Apple Vision Pro if you were watching sports and then had the sports app open. But this is iPhone only, notably like Journal, which launched with iOS 17 and is still, or actually, I guess it launched with like 17.2 or something. It didn't come out with the main release.
Right.
But Journal is still iPhone only, missing a lot of features that users want. And so it just seems like an interesting trend of Apple to kind of release these first-generation, first-party apps that are iPhone only, very single-purpose, simplistic, and although, like Gruber said, I really... Did you ever... Let me ask you this. Did you ever use a third-party app to, like, look at sports scores during games and such?
So, no, except, like, I'll just... During a game, if I can't... Like, for example, we're Michigan State basketball fans, and the other day they were on Peacock, I'm pretty sure, which is, by the way...
Sure.
Please stop putting games that people want to watch on your random niche streaming service that no one subscribes to. We can talk about this more later, but please stop doing it. Just please, it's not. I didn't pay for it. I'm just going to not get to watch the game. But what I just will do is Google. I just use Google because Google just tells me the real-time scores. If I type it in, it just pops up. And actually, I'm pretty sure Siri will just do that. If you type it into the search bar, it'll just show you that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I haven't. I mean, sometimes I'll open the ESPN app, especially during March Madness. But you know what March Madness is, right?
It's the college basketball. Yes, I know that March Madness. There's certain sports things that are like you just can't not know because it's just everyone talks about it, and then I'm the only guy in the room that's like, yeah, March Madness.
But you're probably the guy who, if you entered a March Madness pool, would have the greatest chance of winning. Because you'd fill out a bracket having no idea who's supposed to win these games, and you just randomly do it, and a lot of the games end up being random anyway. So.
Yeah, maybe I should see if I can place a bet in that Apple Sports app. Just kidding. I would not do that. But anyway, well, the other thing I was going to say was Gruber mentioned, and if other people have used different third-party apps to track scores, like the ESPN, I think there's another app like Score or something, that Apple Sports app is actually much faster to load and show the scores, mostly because there's not all the ads and other cruft that you might find in third-party apps, so that is actually a big benefit. And I'm curious how fast these apps will come to iPad and Apple's other platforms, like Journal, Apple Sports, things like that. But anyway, that's the Apple Sports app. We'll put a link to their newsroom article. And just to tag on a few more Apple things, iOS 17.4, we got beta 4 earlier this week, and we're seeing more and more information about what's going to be included in that. One being, Apple announced that iMessage is getting even greater end-to-end encryption. Now, there's a bunch of words here that I don't understand, but I'll just put this article. Basically, it's PQ3 encryption. And this is really the chart. So if you're watching, or you can go to youtube.com/@primarytechshow or click the link in the show notes. But they basically have this graph of cryptography and how secure different levels of cryptography are. level 0, which I feel like this is just kind of like a side burn, like WeChat, Telegram, like no end-to-end encryption by default. That's like the far left level 0. Level 1 is end-to-end encryption by default, which apps like Line, WhatsApp, the previous version of Signal, and the previous version of iMessage. And then there's post-quantum cryptography, or PQC. I don't even know what kind of quantum hacking is going on. I don't know what that means. I thought that was like an atomic level thing. I thought like Ant-Man is fighting off spam in your iMessages. I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure what's happening. But level 2 is PQC key establishment, which is Signal, I guess, uses that level 2. And iMessage, starting with 17.4, they're going to slowly upgrade iMessage conversations to use this level 3, which is PQC key establishment, ongoing PQC rekeying. And apparently iMessage is going to be the only messaging service at this point that uses this secure post-quantum cryptography key establishment and rekeying. I mean, it sounds really fancy. That's exciting, I guess.
Okay,
I don't know anything else about it.
Okay, here we go. Super. This is the easiest way to explain
Please.
this. Essentially, now one thing I should say, if you're looking at this graph, the ones that say no end-to-end encryption by default. So, for example, I believe that this is true in Telegram, that you can enable end-to-end encryption. It's just not on by default. So it doesn't mean that those things have nothing. But the idea is that Apple is trying to create a system that, so currently end-to-end encryption requires a key to decrypt it on both ends, right? For both users have their own key, and only people with that key. And in theory, if you had a powerful enough computer, you could figure out what that key was if someone really wanted to. It's just that at this point in time with computing technology, even with our M3 Max, MacBook Pros, and whatever you might have, like it would take like on a matter of like years, decades to work out all of the potential possibilities and to do that. That could change, though, when you introduce quantum computing, which is not a mainstream thing at this point, right? There are like, I don't even know. I'm pretty sure that you could count the number of actual quantum computers on one, maybe two hands, right? I know Google has one, IBM has one. Like there are some that exist, but they're not a mainstream thing, and they don't usually rent out access to hackers, and so that's a good thing. But if there is a point in time in the future when, if they become more available, that someone with a computer like that would be able to much more quickly work out these keys and then decrypt your messages. And so what Apple is actually doing is an interesting thing where they are creating a protocol that is designed to resist quantum computing attacks, but also they're designing it in a way that you can't even capture the information now. Because one of the things, if you were a political dissident or a journalist or someone who is a high value target, a group that, maybe think when we say group, probably a state, right, might try to capture all of your information now, knowing that they can't read it, but that they could someday. And so Apple is trying to prevent both of those things from happening. They're trying to protect against threats that exist today in the world, but also keep their information secure so that they couldn't just take all that stuff and then decrypt it someday when they get a powerful enough computer. So that's the real world application of this. Will it matter to most people? No. Like, it's great that Apple's doing this and that it's just going to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Will it change your experience? For most people, probably not. If you're not somebody who already turned on whatever that feature, the advanced whatever that protection for like
advanced iCloud data protection.
But it's like the super like duper if you're like about to be kidnapped by political groups.
Yeah.
It's essentially the feature we told no one to turn on because it would make your life way too much of a mess. So yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing that Apple, I mean, again, to your point, does these kinds of updates and builds these things into iMessage, and no one, maybe I know, that is asking for it, or that most users will never feel the difference. But I'm glad to know that they're doing it, and it's happening in the background and be more secure. So it's cool. Real quick, just some other iOS 17.4 changes. I kept saying we were going to talk about the Apple Podcast updates, and we never got a chance. So Apple Podcasts getting some really great updates in 17.4, which should be coming out in March. Apple said in one of their newsroom articles that in March it will be available to everyone. It's on beta 4 right now. But the Apple Podcast widget, it's actually going to change color depending on the show art that you're actually playing, which is pretty cool. That's something that Pocket Cast, I believe Overcast does as well. I know Pocket Cast does it. So it's nice to see that feature being added. And then also Apple Podcast transcriptions, which transcriptions are supported in RSS. There's like an ID tag for transcriptions. So podcasts who have had transcriptions in their RSS feed, it will now be viewable in Apple Podcasts. And honestly, it looks great. Like this right here, we're showing it on YouTube, that you can see this transcript live. Like it actually follows the words as they're being spoken. You can search the transcript and then jump between all the search terms or search results using arrows. And you can even just view the full transcript if maybe someone is hearing impaired, but they just want to read the entire text of the show. You can do that. And I think what's notable is Apple is just transcribing everyone's podcasts. Like even if you did not have transcriptions before or uploaded transcriptions, Apple's just doing it. And I'm going to say something because I've always wanted to say something like this. A little birdie told me tangentially. I don't even know if I should say this. It's not that big of a deal, but apparently Apple has actually.
If you're going to start the sentence with that, it better be a big deal. Come on.
I mean, I think it's interesting as a podcast creator. When you search in the Apple Podcast app, it will show you not only podcast show results, but episode results, depending on what you search. And it's not just searching the titles and descriptions of podcasts. There's actually been transcribing happening behind the scenes for a long time. And that's what actually went into search being improved over time in Apple Podcasts. So basically, this is something that Apple's just finally bringing to the surface, building it into the app so you can see the transcript live, and just a really exciting feature. And so Apple Podcasts gets really good. I think I'm going to make a video soon because a lot of people were asking, why do you use Apple Podcasts over Pocket Casts and Overcast? They have so many more features. Yes, I was a Pocket Cast user for a long time. It's an amazing app. Overcast is amazing. But I don't know. Maybe I'll talk about that another time. What app do you use to listen to podcasts?
So I actually, this is going to sound super like I'm pandering, but I actually just use whatever Steven recommends at the moment because I had been using Pocket Casts for a very long time, and then he was like, "You should use podcasts." He didn't say this to me. He just in general was like, "Hey, the podcast app is really good." All of a sudden, so I'm like, "Oh, I should check that out." So I had gone back to using it. It does have a fatal flaw, which is it cuts off the notes after a certain amount of characters, which is ridiculous. Apple, whoever that little birdie was, please, come on, this is. I don't understand. It's like, are you running out of server space or something? Like this does. I mean, you're certainly the notes is not anywhere. It's got to be less than 1% of the total data involved in serving up a podcast. So come on.
Yes, I have two huge complaints that every time I get to be a part of a briefing with Apple Podcast people, I mention these two things, even if their updates have nothing to do with it. One is the show notes being cut off at 4,000 characters. No other podcast does it. Spotify, Pocket Cast, Overcast, they all show the entire show notes. They don't cut them off. And then two, podcast subscriber audio. So if you support this show directly in Apple Podcasts, you get the ad-free version, but you can't get chapters. Apple actually strips the chapters out of my MP3 file for the subscriber audio only, which is so frustrating because those are the people actually paying to listen to the content, and they're not getting the chapters and the custom chapter art, which I spend a lot of time doing. I enjoy doing the chapter art for the show. But if you support the show at primarytech.fm, you get it through Memberful, and there you get chapters and everything. So if you want to support the show, but you don't want to lose chapters, you can support us on Memberful, and you still get everything in one feed. It's all nice and clean. But anyway, I mention it every time. And so if you're listening, Apple Podcasts, don't cut off my show notes. Give me chapters in subscriber audio. That's all.
This doesn't seem like too much to ask, really. But also, I think the one other thing I wish that they would do, and I think maybe Overcast is the one who does this the best. I can't remember if Pocket Cast does it. I'm pretty sure that they do. Is you can actually create a link to share to a direct spot in the episode as opposed to just the episode at all. And I think in Overcast it'll actually just export like a 1-minute clip of it if you want to actually cut the audio and do it.
Yes.
So there are some really great apps out there, but I've been using the Apple Podcast just because they made some changes and I thought I should use it and give it a shot, and we'll see what happens. So, plus, I also use it on my Mac a surprising amount of time, and it is nice to have the same sequence of here's what I've listened to, here's what I haven't. So,
yeah, exactly. Anyway. I will say the Pocket Cast Mac app way better than Apple's podcast app because it actually keeps your play time in sync. So you can literally press pause on your iPhone, open the Pocket Cast app on your Mac, and it's synced exactly to the timestamp of the episode you were listening to. And Apple still doesn't do that.
I'm switching back as soon as we're done.
Okay. Real quick, last 17.4, and we'll move on. In the EU, due to third-party app marketplaces, Apple is removing some features for web apps, which web apps have been around since the original iPhone. It was actually before the App Store. Steve Jobs was like, web apps, they're great. That's all you need on your iPhone, which obviously was not the case. But web apps have actually gotten features over the years. So a web app is like if you go to a website, Xbox Cloud Gaming is a prime example on the iPhone. You have to go to the website, and then if you add it to your home screen using the share button, that app actually gets more features. It could even send you notifications now. Web apps had that ability, and it would be able to run a little differently. I'm not sure the technical change, but that's why Xbox Cloud Gaming, you had to add it to your home screen in order to use it rather than just in the Safari browser. I think you get like full screen viewing and all that.
Yep.
But in the EU, with 17.4, web apps will not have those capabilities. It actually removes the ability to have those home screen web apps as, and there's a term for it. What is it? Do you know it? It's like the PFW or something. You know what I'm talking about?
I have no idea what you're talking about. Oh, those are progressive web apps. Yep.
Progressive web apps. Progressive web apps is the particular kind of web app where it could deliver push notifications with icon badges and things like that. So because of the DMA, they are removing this ability. Apple is saying it's because of all third-party app browsers will be allowed with different browser engines in the EU. They don't want to allow web apps because it's a security risk, because these third-party web browsers with different engines might do something nefarious. It would seem like they could still allow Safari to do it, but part of the DMA is also that Apple can't prefer its browser over others. So technically, they couldn't allow Safari to allow these progressive web apps and not Chrome or Edge or whatever. So, yeah, no more progressive web apps in the EU due to 17.4. That's weird.
I'm sure that there's a technical reason for this, but you can still open any, quote, web app in your browser. All you're losing is the ability to save it to your home screen and have it open in its own enclosed thing without basically the browser Chrome. That's like the biggest benefit you get, is you don't end up with the bar at the bottom and the whatever.
Right.
So I don't really understand this. Just feels, I don't know if this is malicious compliance like we've been talking about with the DMA, but it does feel weird. But at the same time, I can't imagine that there are more than a dozen people who care. Like, this feels like one of those things they're about to change that will have almost zero. I mean, in fact, I think that somewhere in one of the releases they made reference to the fact that like such an incredibly small number of people are using this that we're just not going to put the effort into figuring out how to make it work.
And honestly, cloud gaming was probably one of the main use cases, at least the most pervasive, and that's actually going to be available directly in the App Store globally. So Xbox Cloud Gaming and other apps can just have an app in the App Store and not have to do the weird progressive web app thing. So,
although I'm pretty sure Microsoft said they're not going to do that. They're not. They're not doing it. I'm pretty sure. I just heard this on a podcast. Yeah. I'll look it up. You keep talking.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that Phil Spencer just said this on a podcast like this. It was with their Xbox thing. They're bringing their games everywhere except for they're not bringing cloud gaming. So I'll have to look it up. So
okay, shoot. Well, we'll follow up on that. I'm not sure. I do want to mention Alexa announced this week that they have a new Echo Hub that is basically the smart home controller everyone wants for HomeKit. So this is a touchscreen display that is going to, it's like $180. And you'll be able to either mount it on a wall or have it in your kitchen on the countertop. $180. Jennifer Toohey has an article on The Verge about it. She's I had her on many podcasts before, but this device is pretty sweet. I mean, you can have smart home widgets. It has a proximity sensor where it'll turn the screen on as you approach it. There's no ads on it, which is surprising for an Amazon device. Kudos. You can do power over Ethernet, which that feature alone would get me to buy this thing immediately. That's amazing. And also, it's a smart home hub, and it can connect to Zigbee, Thread, and Matter devices. So it kind of has all those smart home technologies in one, which is pretty sweet. Also works as a Ring alarm panel. But here's the deal. Apple, just make one of these. Now, I know there's going to be somebody out there that says, well, just put an iPad mini and mount it on the wall. It's not the answer, okay? It's not the answer.
No, it's not.
We want a dedicated smart home hub and build in those kinds of things like Thread, Matter support. This way, you don't have to have like an Apple TV or a HomePod, because there are people out there who want to get started and might not have either of those. They might not have a HomePod mini, they might not have an Apple TV, but they have an iPhone, an iPad, and a Mac. They're like, I want to do smart home things. It would be amazing just to have this. It makes controlling smart home much more user-friendly, especially for those who are not like totally into it like you might be. And I just want to put this on my kitchen wall and be able to show scenes and widgets, be able to control devices. Someone rings the doorbell, you could see it on this screen, because right now I was thinking I have HomeKit everything. And I have a HomeKit Secure Video Doorbell, the Logitech Circle View, and so when someone rings it, if you have an Apple TV on, it will show the video of that doorbell on the Apple TV, which is a super cool feature. And you can even expand it, make it big. But if you don't have an Apple TV on, you can look at your device and you can see a thumbnail, but it would be so nice to have a device like this on the wall. Someone rings the doorbell, and you immediately just see a video preview of who's at the door without having to look at a device. You know, if you're cooking, my wife's cooking in the kitchen or whatever, and hands are doing stuff, like she doesn't have her device to see what's going on at the doorbell, just to look over and see the video doorbell preview on this. I would love it. So would you get one of these? I guess
no, because I'm not going to get one because it's made by Amazon. But I think the idea is exact. I mean, we have the Google Nest Hub Max, which is essentially this, but for Google. And Google's made this for a very long, quite a while. And Amazon has made an Echo Show, but this is a much more targeted, smart home control device than the previous versions were.
Right.
And absolutely, I think that Apple needs to make one. Well, I think it might have been was it on Connected not this week, but last week, that the guys were talking about how somebody was digging through something related to tvOS updates and then HomePod updates and saw that there were UI debugging controls that make it seem as though it's pretty clear that there is a HomePod in the works that has a screen, and that could be coming. I mean, the rumors that they were doing this have been true for a while, but it does actually seem like there is some code. You know, the people who know a lot more about code, who have the time to go and look at this kind of stuff, seem to think that it is much closer. And yes, we talked about this on one of our, we've only done 10 episodes, so it hasn't been that long, but on one of our earlier episodes, we talked about the Google tablet that I was reviewing, and the whole thing, Apple, just make one of these things. Make me a speaker and a screen that I could put in my kitchen. I think that on Connected, they even called it the Kitchen Pod, right? Just make one. You can even use that name. I'd still buy it, as dumb as that is. It'd still be easier than Google's naming convention, the Google Nest Hub Max. I got it right that time, by the way.
That was good. See, you could just have, so you have HomePod, you got HomePod Mini, you can do HomePod Ultra with a screen. You could do HomePod Vision. Little cross thing. You could do HomePad iPad, or you got iPad Air, iPad Pro, iPad HomePod. iPad HomeKit. This is getting worse as we go. Never mind.
It is.
Apple, just make one of these. Just make one of these. That's all we want.
Yeah,
and
call it whatever you want. I'll give you $200. Just call it anything. I don't care.
$200, Jason. This thing's going to be $350 at the least.
A big HomePod is $350.
A big HomePod is $300, but there's no screen. Does Apple sell anything with a screen for under $500? I don't think so.
No, but this is an interesting point. Apple generally prices its thing to be roughly 20% more than the best version of that thing. So if you look at the best version of what we're describing, I think the current best version is the Google Nest Hub Max, and it's what, 180 or something. So my guess is they make one for $250.
The Google Nest Hub Max is $230.
Okay, so I was wrong.
Apple's going to make theirs for $279. I'm going to call it $279.
Okay, it's going to be $700. You're right. It's basically going to cost the iPhone.
It's going to be $700. Right. I also want to throw this in just before we take a break. Wyze, which is a smart home camera maker. I get emails, Jason, because I have a YouTube channel, and people want to send me products to review. And I've gotten to the place now where I just say no to pretty much everybody. But this is a company, I've gotten emails, not from them directly, but from PR agencies. And I'm always like, A, it's not HomeKit, so I'm not going to use it. But B, I don't know. I always got a funny feeling about Wyze, which, again, might seem like self-serving in retrospect.
Fortuitous, apparently. Yes.
Which is fortuitous, apparently. But Wyze cameras had a massive security breach where 13,000 users were able to see other users' cameras. And it wasn't camera feeds, to be clear, but 13,000 users of Wyze cameras were able to see the static thumbnail image previews from other users' cameras in their app, which even a frozen thumbnail image can be pretty, that's rough.
Super bad. But also there was a report that there were some people that when they clicked on it did get to see archived video or something, saved video. I know. But here's I want to say something about this. What they've said is that it was the problem of a third-party caching library that went down, and because there was like an outage with their service, and then when it came back up, it overloaded this third-party. They basically blamed AWS, which is the internet. Like all of the internet is AWS, and it's not that they don't occasionally have things go out, but I don't think like it probably wasn't their fault because I should write about this, but no one knows what Wyze is, so that's why I haven't written about it. But fundamentally, if your entire technology stack is built in a way that this could ever happen, then you're just doing it wrong, right? Because if you think about the way that Apple does it, there is just no scenario because of the way that Apple builds its tech stack that if a it's HomeKit secure video. Like there's a reason that they call that.
That's right in the name.
Only that there's no scenario where I think they said something like customer IDs and like video ID, device IDs got mixed up in some database somewhere. Like that should just never ever happen. And I don't know how I honestly don't know how a company like this could possibly come back from this.
Well, and this was a similar case with Eufy. Their cameras, it wasn't this kind of breach, but they had something where I think device IDs were leaked or like device names and Wi-Fi network names, something like that. And so this is just something, again, I'm a big smart home person. So if you on my YouTube channel, I have several videos about how I have over 100 HomeKit devices. There are smart home brands I feel like are trustworthy, especially when it comes to cameras. Like Arlo, I think is a great brand. They make HomeKit stuff, but it's also compatible with other devices. I think Ecobee has some really good cameras. Eve, obviously, those more HomeKit. But this is one of the reasons why I use HomeKit Secure Video solely. Like it's the only one. Unify is also another one because I know the Unify crowd, which I'm a Unify guy. That's my whole network. But if I don't mention Unify, there's going to be hordes of people being like, Unify's the best camera. I just need to say, Unify is probably some of the best security cameras too. Very secure.
We're going to get more one-star reviews. We're going to get
no one-star reviews. Listen, leave a 5-star and tell us why Unify security cameras are the best. You can do that.
Thank you.
But I will say, HomeKit Secure Video, this is why I'm just all in on HomeKit because I never have to think about it. Like no third party is accessing that data. Like it's me and Apple, and that's it.
Yep.
And everything happens locally. It's the beauty of HomeKit. Even if like the internet goes down, but my Wi-Fi network is still up just because, Frontier's out or whatever, like you can still control all your home devices because it's all local and secure. HomeKit Secure Video. It's right in the name. It's right in the name.
And when you say like when your internet goes out, what you mean is that you're getting less than 1 gig up and down, right?
Listen, unless I'm getting 2 gigs down, I consider the internet to be out.
It's out. Yeah, I get it.
It's totally out. Everybody stop using the internet. All right? Dad needs to upload a video.
I just wanted to clarify.
Get off your phone.
Yeah.
That's what I do. It's funny. Andrew Edwards, he's a great YouTuber. He was talking about Wi-Fi 7 and getting 1500 down, and I messaged him. I said, I don't get out of bed for less than 2 gigs. I don't even get out of bed. I really want to make a shirt for that. Anyway, we got a lot more news to cover. We're going to have to hit it quickly. But before we do, just want to take a break and thank those who support the show directly because this episode was brought to you by you, our members who support us in Apple Podcasts and on Memberful. And so if you haven't yet, you can get an ad-free version, meaning even this section where we're plugging our own show, I cut out for the ad-free version. And so you could go over, you could subscribe in Apple Podcasts, $5 a month, or go to primarytech.fm, click bonus episodes, same $5 a month or $50 a year. You can do that in either place. We have several who have done that. Thank you. And you can support the show, which is, just great to support stuff you love, support other podcasts too, and also you get bonus episodes every week. So you get the ad-free version of the main show and a separate bonus episode, which we talk about really fun stuff. I grilled Jason on his Tesla last week. I think I just said exciting, and I'm going to say this next line, but I think we're going to talk about why Jason uses notepads this week, which is I'm very excited to hear.
Like paper, like he just,
like paper notepads.
Why I write with stuff on paper. Yep.
Exactly. So we would ask that you could support the show, and we understand if you can't do $5 a month, leave that 5-star review in Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. That also helps the show. And so thanks to everyone who supports the show, which they're not hearing this because I cut it out. But to all of you who will support the show, thank you anyway. For those of you who support the show for hearing this, thank you as well. And now back to the show. All right, lots of other news. Oh, so OpenAI launched Sora, or announced. I keep saying launched. They previewed Sora last week. For some reason, I really thought Thursdays were just a good day to do a podcast about tech news because most of the tech news is out. And like the last 4 weeks, it's been announcement right after we're done recording from Apple, from other places. But anyway, Sora is OpenAI's video AI model, and it is really impressive. If you have not, I'll put a link to Jason's article covering Sora. You should just go to the Sora website and preview some of the videos that they have generated by AI, and it is really mind-blowing. Some of it, I had to disable ad blockers so you can actually see these videos. Mm-hmm. So here's AI-generated video. Again, like, just incredible. And as always, MKBHD had great commentary on, like, what are the ramifications? What does this mean? And I think it's because now it's in, image generation was one thing. This video generation, it feels like a huge step. And a lot of people were comparing it to the Will Smith eating spaghetti generated AI video, which I did not see a year ago. And now seeing it like come back up in the news, it is literally horrifying. I don't even want to show it on this podcast.
Yeah, don't.
Because it is so weird, so bizarre. But they redid Will Smith eating spaghetti with the Sora, and it's pretty amazing. As a video creator myself, I feel like, one, how fast this it progresses in a year is wild, and I think is slightly scary, like to think about 5 years from now what this technology is capable of. Number two, I feel more sure than ever that people are going to look for personal connections, especially to creators. And so I do feel that the creator economy, especially like tech creators, vloggers, whatever, I think it's actually going to drive people more to that personality-based content because AI is farther away from being able to generate that. And even if it could, like, totally generate a person and has it like an AI-generated YouTube channel, basically, like, think MKBHD, but a fake person, generated AI, I think people just knowing the fact that it would be generated will be more averse to that and want to find an actual human being, flesh and blood. Mm-hmm. I think that, I don't know, that's just an idea I have about the future. But third, there are several industries that this is going to disrupt in a big way. I think the biggest and most immediate one, once Sora is available publicly, like right now you can't use it just yet. It's going to launch in the future. I'm sure this is going to be a paid service, at least with ChatGPT Plus, like the $20 a month, probably in addition, I would think, because this seems like a very useful tool. And again, the main use case I feel like that businesses and brands will jump on is stock footage. Rather than pay to find stock footage on a service or rummage through Shutterstock or whatever for a piece of stock footage you need for a company video or whatever, you can just generate exactly what you want and it look like real. Like there's a couple drone shots that are on the Sora website that, well, they look like drone shots. I just said it was a drone shot. Yeah. And it is mind-boggling. So I'm going to pull up that website, but I don't know. Tell me your thoughts when you saw this launched and like seeing some of those initial videos.
Yeah, I think I have three quick thoughts. The first one is it is sort of staggering how far into the future this looks like it is, right? You're right. Like, wow, this is AI generated. I didn't think we'd get here yet. But then when you start to watch it, it's like 80%. We were at like 5% and we got to 80% and it's amazing. But man, that last 20%, we are a long way away. Like there's the video of the people at the birthday party and the ladies blowing out a candle and the people in the background have no bones in their hands, right? Like it is in my mind, the only industry right now that this is going to disrupt is horror films, because I know how you feel about body horror, Steven, and this,
I don't like
every one of these videos, when you start to, even the ones that are animals and pets, they're just like, what is wrong with that dog?
Now,
like, I don't understand where the other dog come from.
This video that we're playing right now, the human faces in this like quote unquote movie trailer, I think is pretty impressive. Now, granted, they're not moving. Like they're not moving very much. The human face is just like kind of static. But this was like one of the drone shots I was saying. Like this shot right here of like this looks just like someone captured a drone shot, and this is totally AI generated and could totally get it. Now the birthday thing, and OpenAI was open about this, pun intended, but they were like, it's not perfect, and one of the things it's really bad at is hands. And like these are some of the failed attempts. Like this dude running on a treadmill kind of backwards. The foxes that are kind of like self-generating out of each other.
Just out of what is happening?
This is the problem. But I got to find, this is the birthday one, which is literally horrifying. But like if you just look at a glance and you're just focused on, the elderly lady blowing out candles. Well, she never blows them out. You don't think much of it. And then as you look closer, the candles, the flames at the top of the candles are blowing in different directions.
Right.
Like this is a spot the differences, like spot the things. And if you look at any person in the background, the hands, literally horrifying. I think this is body horror. I think this qualifies.
It absolutely is. It's like the other one that is terrifying is the one where the cat wakes up the person in bed, and the cat has at least 3 front legs. And the person that's in bed has at least 3 front limbs. It's just so my point is, I think we're safe for a little while because some of this stuff is just it's amazing because again we were used to like looking at things that were like 5% of the way there, and now we're like 80%. But that last 20%, and the reason is, so this is Google had its own. Well, Google had its own like blow up because they had to shut down image generation in Gemini because of some it was not creating historically accurate images because they had attempted to try to like be more representative. That's a whole separate issue. But one of the quotes was something along the lines of like, that's because these things, they don't actually understand physics. Oh my gosh, I'm going to cry. This is the worst video in the history of humanity. When you watch, it's amazing at first, and then you realize that, there's a paw. And wait, hold on. And there's another front. What's going on? Front left paw. I don't understand
so
what's
scary.
And then watch the human's arm. It's just all. What happened? Why is there a hand?
Yeah,
that cat
weird.
murdered that person, Stephen.
All 8 paws.
I don't understand. Anyway, I'm sorry. This was terrible. This is the worst podcasting in the history of podcasting.
No. Just go watch this segment on YouTube and go subscribe to the channel, by the way.
Okay.
But anyway, it is just impressive how fast the technology is moving. I get that there is some concern, but I just think stock footage, especially like if you were, I don't want to seem, I don't know, but like if you were trying to make a career out of like drone photography of landscapes, I feel like that's going to be a hard industry. Like you're going to have like the most incredible drone footage, like flying through an erupting volcano with like close-ups of magma balls in order to differentiate from the kind of AI generated content. And honestly, you might like things you couldn't achieve with a physical drone and camera. One day soon, you'll be able to achieve with these AI generated video clips. And I think it's a wild time. Like it's pretty incredible.
Yep.
Which, a side note, I'll just throw it in here. You were pointing out Nvidia, which makes graphics cards, had, I don't know, was it one of their biggest quarters ever? Ridiculous.
Yeah. When you look at what their revenue was compared to the previous year, it's like multiples of like 290% types. Like it's just completely astronomical because if you think about the last year I think ChatGPT was released to the public in November of 2022. So we're like 18 months away from that roughly. And so Nvidia, if you look at the market cap of Nvidia from that point, it was like roughly $300 billion. I'm not going to get the numbers exactly right, but somewhere in that neighborhood, and it's getting close to 2 trillion right now. So it's like it is just riding the wave of AI. I mean, Nvidia is benefiting more from the rise of AI than OpenAI, than Microsoft, than any of these other companies because they make the chips. 265%. They make the chips that right now are fueling all of this. And they are projecting that it's going to continue to grow over the next year as well. Their stock was up like 10 or 12 or 15% or something like that. It's completely banana. Like this is like an iPhone moment, right? And the thing is, the iPhone didn't even increase the value of Apple that much in a year, but it was the thing that set it on the course. This at this point is even, in fact, the only example I can think of, which maybe is a cautionary tale, is Peloton during the pandemic, right? They had explosive growth because no one could go outdoors, and so everybody bought their Peloton bikes. But obviously what we know is that there was only so many people that were ever going to buy them. They all just bought them at once, right? Peloton spent $500 million on a factory, filled it up with bikes that no one ever bought, and is now like selling them at Kmart on clearance. That part's not true, but like they can't sell these things anymore because people can go back outside. Like we can go do things. We can go to movie theaters. We can go to Planet Fitness again if you want to. So I don't know that's necessarily what's going to happen to Nvidia, but it does seem like at some point there are only so many places you can put data centers, right? I don't know what that amount is, but I think that they were projecting that there's something along the lines of like $2 trillion worth of data centers to be built in the next 5 or 6 years. And right now, Nvidia is poised. If you think about if they're generating $22 billion in revenue, but they're projecting that it could be $2 trillion worth of data centers, like that's a lot of room to grow, is what I'm trying to say.
It's a lot of room to grow, and it's just amazing to me. Like from a long, like many years viewpoint, graphics cards, obviously used in computers, video games, video production and editing, like graphics processing, and this new use case for a technology that's been around for decades and is now exploding this business again. It's pretty amazing. And so to be clear, like these large language models run on graphics cards. And this was also the kind of like the crypto boom as well, which is like graphics cards. Like you couldn't even get them for years because everybody was trying to mine for Bitcoin or whatever. Right. Which I never did. I think that's somewhere in the quantum realm with my iMessages.
Yes.
So
well, and specifically, it's that Nvidia makes a specific chip. I think it's the H100 that is specifically designed for servers in data centers. So people aren't buying like 4090s to do this. First of all, that would be insanely expensive to try to just fill a shelf full of this. But it is essentially the same type of a thing that these are graphical because it's all just linear processing as opposed to like a CPU, which is. Yeah, I don't know the difference. That was all the words I knew about that. But the point is, they're basically graphics cards, but they are a very specific kind that are designed to go into servers, and that is what does all of this processing. Right. So,
exactly. All right, lightning round. Just these last few things. We hadn't talked about Apple Vision Pro all episode, and so I'm just going to mention a couple things here, which I find interesting. Apple Insider posted some images during the Slam Dunk contest. What looks like 3D stereoscopic cameras. These also look similar to what was used in that Alicia Keys music video. They were just in tall white speaker cabinets in that. But these look like maybe we'll see an immersive Slam Dunk video in Apple Vision Pro. Listen, I might not be totally into sports ball. All right, I said it just once the entire episode. But I would watch this. I would watch some immersive content of a Slam Dunk contest. And also, it was Mac Rumors, I believe, found that Apple said the MLS, the 2023 playoffs, were recorded in 8K 3D with 180-degree field of view. And coming soon, Apple Vision Pro users can experience the 2023 MLS Cup playoffs in the first ever sports film captured in Apple Immersive Video. So it seems like it'd be more film than like just watching the full-on games. But I do think it is interesting having sports captured in immersive video. And if one day, I have to imagine the technology or the maybe the bandwidth needed, but to like stream a live sports game in immersive video, I mean, I'm sure that's the goal. Like to be able to watch MLS, Friday Night Baseball, watch the NBA in immersive video live. When we get to that, I don't know how far off it is. Is it a year? Is it months? That's going to be a cool experience. And my father-in-law is like how I am with sports on the spectrum. He is the opposite end of the spectrum. Like he is all the sports all the time, knows all the things. And that is going to be when I have him try Apple Vision Pro. And, that might be enough for him to buy one. We'll see. Well, immersive sports might be.
I was going to ask you, are you the type of person who, once you know the score of a game, can you go back and watch it? But you don't watch the game anyway, so the score is irrelevant to you. So that's fine. But because I can't, if I find out what the score of a game is, forget it. There's nothing else that happens in the game that's interesting. It doesn't matter how incredible the highlights are. I'll just watch the highlights like a clip on YouTube or whatever. It doesn't matter. But you asked how long it's going to be before we get this. First of all, you're going to need all of your 2 gigs to get any of this, for sure. Because right now, you can get like 6 sporting events in there, mostly like Premier League soccer, in 4K. You can't even get 4K. I think the Super Bowl was in 4K, but it was actually like 1080p upscaled or something stupid like that. Like because it's just the bandwidth isn't there, and even on a 4K television, you're not sitting so close that it matters. But anyway, it's going to be a while because this is like the word she's 180 degree 8K stereoscopic spatial video. Like, there's a lot of words in there that increase the bandwidth. Is all I'm trying to say. Like,
yes, exactly. That's gonna be a challenge. We're really terrible at lightning rounds, but that's okay. I'm sorry. Too. No. It's me too. Because I also want to mention right after we finished recording last week, TikTok released their Apple Vision Pro app, which sounds, I know some people are like, I never want to have TikTok in VR. I just want to mention it's actually way better in Apple Vision Pro than on the iPhone because if you've ever opened TikTok, it's just like a mess of things. Like the like, comment, save, share buttons are all on top of the video, and there's captions happening. Like if there's live captions, then also like the caption for the post is on, like it's all there on the video you're trying to watch, and it's very busy. And TikTok actually, I think very intelligently in Apple Vision Pro, like moved all those elements off the video. And so you can watch TikTok videos and it's just a much cleaner experience. And so not saying you should buy Apple Vision Pro for TikTok, not at all, but it's actually a really good use of the platform, taking an app that is actually, in my opinion, better. Like even seeing the comments, these comments will pull up alongside to the right of the video, where if you're on your phone, if you pull up the comments, you can't watch the video anymore. Like the comments just cover the whole video. So the Apple Vision Pro TikTok app, actually decent. Impressed. So
people keep talking about how the Apple Vision Pro needs a killer app, and I'm just going to say that if TikTok is the killer app on the Vision Pro, that will be more concerning to me than the AI generated videos where the people don't have bones in their hands. Because this, where are we even going as a world?
No. Okay, last two things before we get to our personal tech, which Jason and I are going to argue about battery percentage in the status bar real quick. I do want to mention, because it's kind of a tangential follow-up, Waymo, which is, we talked about full self-driving cars a couple weeks ago. Apparently, the one car that might have been the argument for full self-driving, which not even, it's halting expansion plans because of regulators. And I didn't realize, is Waymo owned by Alphabet, Google's parent company?
Oh, yeah, I guess they are. I guess that is true.
Apparently, I guess that is true. I think that's what this Verge article revealed to me. So I'll link the article. But anyway, full self-driving may be farther off than we think.
I mean, Google does have a habit of just randomly collecting. I mean, that's companies. And apparently they were missing a W for Alphabet, so they picked. Actually, no, because they have Wyze, right? Google owns Wyze. So, but
that is true.
I still think it's true. If it's in the Verge, I'm pretty sure it's true.
I'm pretty sure it's true. That's Waymo. And then finally, I just want to hear Jason get mad about another streaming service, which is about HBO. And so tell me, why are you mad at HBO?
Okay, so John Oliver last week tonight, very popular show on HBO, and on Mondays they would always release his main story on YouTube, right? So that you could just watch it on YouTube, just like the clips, kind of like what we do, right? Steven edits the show, puts it on YouTube, but then he also puts like clips that he shares on Shorts and that kind of stuff. And HBO has said that they are not going to do that. They are going to wait until Thursdays to post any of that content. And the reason is because they want people who like John Oliver to pay for Max. I mean, they just came out and said it. And it's like they're treating the people who are watching it on YouTube the same way Netflix is treating the people who share their password with their roommates, as if they are doing something wrong. And my take is, you put it. They're not watching YouTube pirated streams that people are DVRing and then somehow sitting there and posting them. You were putting them there, and now you've decided that you're going to make the experience worse for your fans because you think that they will. If they're not already paying $20 a month for HBO Max, like John Oliver, great. Very talented. His stuff is very good, but this is not what's going to do. You're just going to make a bunch of people mad, right? And even John Oliver, if you scroll down just a little bit, if you're watching this on YouTube, he is the one. Well, you got ad blockers on, so you can't see it, but he tweeted about it or X'd it or however it works, saying like this is normally I would share a link on Mondays, but HBO's decided to wait till Thursdays. I hope that they change their mind. Is what he's saying.
Wow.
He's like, this is stupid. But until then, you can pay for Max. So I put this into the show notes with a link that just says more bad streaming behavior, because it's like people seem to think that the most convincing way to get someone to pay you more money is to make the experience worse, and they will be so thankful that you did that they will give you more money to get back the same experience they were having before. That just feels like really bad business. I don't know. Like, it just doesn't feel like that's the way you should do it.
You know, I was going to make the devil's advocate argument to say, like, Netflix is not putting clips of their original shows on YouTube for people to watch. So maybe Max is justified. But then I'm going to my own devil's advocate, and say I have probably watched more stand-up comedy specials via clips on TikTok than I ever have actually streamed on Netflix.
Yeah.
And that is not an argument to say Netflix should try and shut that down, because you can't. I mean, there's so many people sharing random clips. It's just random accounts sharing clips from, like, you know, whatever, comedy specials on Netflix. Honestly, I feel like it's the best advertisement for the content. Like, if you can preview the content and you really like it, I feel like you would be more inclined to do it, because the people who like John Oliver and maybe like that segment of the show, they're probably, if they're not already paying for Max, I don't think this is going to convince them. It's just going to make them mad, like yourself.
Right.
And those who don't watch John Oliver, not seeing that segment on YouTube, that means nothing to them. Like,
right.
They're not, you know, they weren't watching it already, so they're not going to be motivated to go sign up for Max just for this. I understand leveraging some of your most popular content to get people to buy into your service, but like we have talked about, especially when streaming services, to take something away, like Amazon Prime Video taking away Dolby Atmos sound and Dolby Vision, to take something away from a package someone started paying for, and these were all the, you know, features they got. I think taking something away is user hostile, as opposed to something like Disney Plus adding a lower price tier with ads, but not changing anything about the tier you started paying for at the beginning of your subscription, although they raise prices every year, but not removing any features, I think, is different. So I'm with you. I think
HBO even said, a spokesperson said, like, hey, listen, we started doing this because it was great promotional exposure for the show, and it helped us build an audience. And apparently what they're saying is, like, well, not enough of those people were converting to subscribers, so we're going to make the promotional exposure a little bit worse. I just feel like, again, don't treat people who are just doing the thing that you let them do because you were posting the stuff on YouTube as if they're freeloaders. They're not. They're just enjoying you're building an audience of fans, and yes, you haven't figured out how to monetize them. This just doesn't seem like the right way to do it. So,
for sure. All right, we have some personal tech, and then our bonus episode. I think we should talk about your notepads in the bonus episode.
All right.
So physical media again makes a comeback in our bonus episodes.
I love it.
But yes, it's good. We're going to talk about battery percentage in a second, but I do want one follow-up. I downloaded Spark last week as we were talking about mail apps. It's on my Mac. I didn't delete it, but I didn't set it up. And here's why. That one issue I was having, I don't know if I mentioned it on the show, but I wasn't able to log into my Google account on my Mac. It kept like 404 erroring at the end of the sign-in process to add a Google account to my Mac for mail and calendar and all that, and I didn't know what was going on. And so I believe this was on Threads, but Tazo from Hawaii, or maybe he emailed me, this was a setting. This is crazy, but apparently if you're having an issue where you can't sign into an email account or whatever, you need to go to Safari, Settings, Advanced, and there's a box you uncheck that says Use Advanced Tracking and Fingerprinting. You have to uncheck that box, and all of a sudden, I was able to sign into my Google account just fine, and then I can toggle it back on. It's some kind of security setting in Safari, which, kudos, great, more security, but the fact that it won't let me add a Google account for mail, calendar, and contacts on my Mac is pretty wild, and I would never have thought to look at Safari settings, although for things like Google, Microsoft Office, Office 365, it does open like a mini Safari window when you're in the settings pane to log into those accounts. And apparently the Safari settings and security is affecting that login window. And if you have that box checked, it might not let you log in, which is wild to me. But anyway, uncheck the box. I logged in, checked it again because I don't know what it does and I want to keep it checked. I assume it's security based. and I was able to add my Google account back, and so I never started to use Spark.
Well, what's happening there is that essentially what that little tiny window that pops up is doing is passing a token from Safari to Spark, right? Because you're actually logging into Safari, you're not actually logging into Spark, but somehow Google has to transfer that information, so it's sending that token between the two, and that's what's considered the advanced track. There's no tracking going on, there's no fingerprinting, it's just that setting is what disables the ability for Google to say to Spark, yep, we've authorized this person, they're good to go. It has to pass that information between the two of them, and that's what that setting is doing. So,
okay. Well, anyway, I'm back. I'm still on stock mail. I didn't try Spark because I got it working again.
All right.
So I still have it installed. I'll try it sometime, but that's a whole process. I have like 4 email accounts set up. I'll try it. One thing at a time. All right. And the other personal tech, battery percentage, which I'm going to pull up one of Jason's articles here. It says, after 5 years, Apple is bringing back the battery percentage indicator on the iPhone. I don't know how you get away with this long of titles in your articles, Jason. This thing's got to be cut off in the Google search. Why it's going to make your life so much better. 2 full sentences in the title of that headline. And no, the battery percentage does not make your life better. I know this is a very divisive topic. I have done polls on X and Mastodon. I don't know if I did one on Threads yet. I do not put the percentage of battery in the status bar of my iPhone. Okay? I have widgets that can do that. I can swipe down from the control center. I am arguing I don't think you need to see that granular percent unless you have like a mission critical job that you need your iPhone for every minute of the day, or they're like people are going to die or something, and you need to know exactly when it hits 53% battery. I don't think you need to have the status bar icon. And Jason, make the case. You work from home and leave your phone on the charger all day. Why do you have the battery percentage in the status bar?
Well, so it's not like I need to know what the battery percentage is specifically. It's just that of the two potential options, one of which is just a slowly depleting graphic, right? And the other one is a slowly depleting graphic that has a number in it. The number is a whole lot more glanceable. Right, if I'm going to have a battery indicator at all that's going to give me that information at the point that I need it, having the number in there to me is far less anxiety inducing, because I'm just looking at a number. I'm not like seeing the visual representation of my ability to communicate with the outside world slowly just draining away, which is what's happening when that battery indicator like goes down. And so I don't necessarily like. I'm kind of indifferent. It's just, to me, having the number there just makes more sense, because if I want that information, why do I want to swipe over to the Today View or pull up a widget or do anything? Like, why wouldn't I just be like, oh, the number's right there. Great. I'm good. I don't need to know any more than that. So, and I honestly don't pay attention to my battery. We were joking about this before. If you buy the biggest battery Apple has ever put into a smartphone, which is what I have in the 15 Pro Max, then I probably don't ever need to think about this, which is mostly true.
Well,
anyway,
I'm going to edit that breakout. But Jason dropped because his battery percentage it went to 97% instead of 98. So continue.
Yes. I am a true definition of a 98%er. I will not leave the house if my battery on my phone is below 98%. So I need to know that at all times. None of that is actually true.
None of that is true. So I will say I have my phone here. So here's my battery icon, right? It's right there. Let me take away the screen share so you can see this large in the frame. There is my battery, right?
Yeah, I see it.
It's pretty full. Like, it's very full. I don't think seeing a number at this point in the day is going to have any bearing on it. Now, I will say my next question to you is, at what percentage do you start feeling battery anxiety? For me, I can look down at that thing, and if it looks less than half, and I still have more of the day left than not, or at least like many hours still left in the day, then I start thinking about where I'm going to charge this thing. But that's really the only time I start thinking about is when that little icon looks a little less than half full. And that's all. That's really the only signal I need. So at what percentage are you like, I'm going to do something now?
Well, okay. I almost never see my battery be below 60%, just because, again, the battery's huge and I work from home, and so it's charged a lot of the times. And then if I go out, I'm plugging it into my car, right? There's like, and I drive an electric car, so I have plenty of juice for my phone. It's going to be just fine. Sure. But I think I just like to the preciseness of the number as opposed to the ambiguity of the icon, and that part of it, to me, I just don't like that additional mental overhead in my life of like not knowing like what is so. But just like you, if I'm gonna go out and I'm below half, but I don't really feel like I ever see it much below half. Like I get surprised if it's like 20%. I was like, how did that happen? I don't know how that happened. So
see, for me, if I'm recording videos about something on my phone, I'll have my phone screen on. I set it so it never locks. And if I'm recording for an hour or so because I'm doing shortcuts videos or whatever, then later that day, my phone will be at like 20%. And I'll be like, why is my phone dead? And I was like, oh, right. The screen was on for like 2 hours as I was doing all this stuff. And those are the time. But, I see the little icon and I see it, it turns yellow. I have low power mode automatically enable. And I think, that's a signal too. So I have a shortcuts automation where when the battery gets to 20% or maybe 30%, it goes into low power mode, which then also changes the icon to yellow in the status bar. And so at any point in the day, I can look down and say, oh, I'm above 30% or below 30%. And if I'm below 30%, I definitely want to charge it. And I think that is another, like, not number, but a visual cue to say, I know I am in the danger zone, highway to the danger zone. I should have had that quote. Just to use that for next episode. But anyway, that's what I know I need to check. But anyway, everyone listening, here's what you do. If you didn't already leave a 5-star review and said nerds or your favorite Halloween candy, then go to Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star rating and review. And in your review, say battery percentage on, battery percentage off. And that will be the way we take this poll is 5-star reviews.
That'd be great. And just understand that neither battery percentage on or off are any indication of anyone's political views. I just want to be clear about that.
That 1-star review is really hurting the other guy on this podcast.
Actually, I could not care less. I just find it really funny.
It is funny. It is funny. So let us know. Now we're going to go record a bonus episode about Jason using physical notepads. And I have thoughts on physical notepads as well. And so we're going to do that. To get the bonus episode, support the show on Apple Podcasts or at primarytech.fm. Click bonus episodes. You could sign up there. And as always, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching on YouTube. You can go subscribe over there, youtube.com/@primarytechshow. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next week.